thank you for all for joining us. I'm Matthew Sutton, I'm Director of Resonant. We're the Salesforce implementation partner, and we've done quite a lot of Xero integrations. We're also joined by Scott Lynch from Beanstalk Accounting. Scott is somebody we work with heavily. He is a Xero implementation partner as well, an accountant, so he can actually answer any technical or actual accounting questions, and we can cover any sort of integration and technical questions around Salesforce to Xero. So hopefully you can all see my screen. And start off with, if you have any questions during the presentation, please butt in. You don't have to wait to the end. You just feel free to unmute yourself and then ask any questions as you want to. This is the rough agenda of what we're going to cover over the next X minutes. Whether or not we're going to take a full hour or not, I don't know. Hopefully we'll all get some time back in our days. So we're going to look through these 5 agenda items. So we'll talk very quickly about us. We'll think about the budgets and main considerations when we're thinking about integrating with Xero. Functional considerations and limitations that can be found in different areas. So as I said, I run Resonant. We are a Salesforce implementation partner. We've completed over 250 implementations in the past 5 years, and that goes across industries. So we've got a really wide breadth of experience with Xero, from very simple integrations to some very complex integrations. Our CSAT score is currently sitting at 4.8, which we're happy about, and we've done about 30 plus integrations in total with Xero, using the different methods that we're going to talk about today. I think the first thing is we're fairly agnostic on selecting a way to integrate with Xero. There are multiple different ways to do it, and it's about picking the right one, that's the method that's best for the company in question at a time. And a lot of that is down to considering 2 things, and that is the budget and the functionality that's required. Budget is the big one, and we've put this little table together, and we'll start at the bottom, I guess, with thinking about the cheaper options of actually managing an integration, starting with Zapier and One SaaS. So I'm not sure how much people would know about those 2 things, but what they are is they are integration tools. You may have heard that you can zap something. That basically means that you can create a zap from one system into another system, and Zapier and One SaaS both integrate with multiple different systems at a time. They are not necessarily specialists within the world of Salesforce or Xero. So this, for instance, is Zapier. As you can see on their page, they have integrations, or a whole page about what they can do between the 2 systems, but they also have multiple different apps, and I think it's a few hundred different apps that they can integrate with. So you have to kind of search through and find the different information about using Zapier as a tool. Zapier isn't it is the sort of first level, entry level, and we've put it down as a high risk option. It is a low cost to a high risk option, mainly because there are occasions where something will fail to zap and there's no warning. And sometimes if you're integrating Salesforce, so your sales system, with an invoicing system, which effectively most people want to do is the invoicing piece, if that fails and you end up losing revenue, then we're saying that's the high risk options. One SaaS is a higher level as a multi-tool integration, and then you've got 2 options which we would call apps from the Salesforce App Exchange. We're actually launching our own app in the App Exchange, which is going to be called Straight to Invoice. That will have a fixed monthly fee of $200 a month, and it is only going to integrate Xero with Salesforce, and that's what it's designed to do. The option Breadwinner, which has been around for much, much longer, and is probably everyone's default tool when they're thinking about integrating. Very, very strong tool. It's been around for a long time. The thing with Breadwinner, where people often get called out is that it has a variable cost, and that can be around the number of invoices that you're sending. So this is Breadwinner. It's a great tool. It works. Does it match your requirements as a business? They talk about on their website about how they work and the different options, and we'll probably get into some of those a bit later. They have updated their pricing page last week. They used to advertise their pricing. One of the key things here is there is a per invoice charge and managing that. So it's worth talking to Breadwinner and actually going through that question with them and thinking about what that's going to do for a monthly budget. Top level option is custom integrations. We do more custom integrations with Xero than we do using third-party apps. That basically means we code from within Salesforce a connection to the Xero API. The Xero API connection is incredibly strong. It's our favorite integration between software. Very, very rarely do we ever find that connection breaks. I think the maintenance costs out of probably over 20 API connections that we've done, the number of times we get called about something failing with that connection would be once or twice a year. It's just very, very stable unless somebody changes something within a system. But that's the kind of order of simplicity. And as you go up, the costs go up. Although you could say that the big difference between the custom integration and everything else is the taking a thought process around, does the business prefer a higher upfront cost and zero ongoing monthly costs, because there's no ongoing subscription costs with a custom integration. Everything else has a monthly cost. So that can be quite important to consider, is the business priority of a high upfront cost or an ongoing monthly cost. So I'll just pause for a second to see if there's any questions around those different options in that table. So we've got third party outside of the Salesforce ecosystem options, Zapier and OneSaaS. We've got two options from within the App Exchange, Breadwinner and straight to invoice, and then a custom integration. So other than budget, the main thing to start thinking about are the different functionalities, and every customer has a different use case and a different reason for wanting to integrate between the two systems. This is pretty much how we break them down and considerations that we take. The invoice cycling, multiple entities, multi-currencies, products and GL codes, and we'll go through these options now. Most people say to me initially is, well, I just want to create an invoice, Salesforce. So I've got an opportunity in Salesforce, we close win it, I want to create an invoice. It actually tends to be a lot more around that conversation. The options being, okay, does one opportunity equal one invoice? Or does one opportunity equal many invoices? Multiple times we have clients who actually want to create an initial deposit invoice or upfront implementation fee. So the options sort of along the bottom would be that there's a one-off invoice, or we're going to invoice monthly subscription costs or variable monthly usage costs. So if we think along the lines of a telecoms company, there may be a connection charge for connecting a phone. I don't think that really happens anymore. Then there'll be an ongoing fixed monthly fee, but then there could also be a per usage cost of how many SMSs or how many minutes are being used. And each of those things has to be invoiced differently. If we think back to the different options for connections, then each of these solutions, Zapier, OneSaaS, Breadwinner, they tend to be that one opportunity or one order in Salesforce equals one invoice. And that can be a major limitation, that if actually you need to create multiple invoices at multiple different points, then you've got to think about a different option for how you may connect. So just saying I want to create an invoice doesn't automatically mean that every solution out there is going to meet that requirement. Around that, we've got to also take considerations of, if we're creating an invoice inside Xero, does the contact already exist? Does the account already exist in there? How are we going to make sure that the company we're invoicing, their details are in there? So with a Zapier, for instance, you'll need to do multiple zaps into the system and make sure that you're connecting up the right piece. So you can't just keep sending in information. Zapier won't query, does this account exist? If it doesn't exist, then create it and then attach an invoice to it. It's got to be done in multiple different stages, and that can take some time to configure. Okay, so there's multiple different pieces around invoicing, around how is it a company invoices. Does anyone have any questions around specific use cases that I'd like to ask? So after invoicing cycling, we need to think about, okay, well, what else is possible? Multiple entities. We work, I think, about 5 different implementations we've done are where companies have multiple business entities and multiple different Xero entities. I think the most we've connected is one Salesforce to 5 different Xero entities. That can also cover multi-currency. So we have connected to Xero entities in Australia, obviously, New Zealand, Singapore, and Papua New Guinea. The one we've just done was actually connecting to 2 different instances for Papua New Guinea, and I can't remember the currency off the top of my head for Papua New Guinea, but it doesn't really matter. We can still connect across into those different options. Any questions around those options? We're also able within, and this is definitely stepping into the world of custom integrations, where we can actually start to get really quite advanced with starting to think about different GL codes. Use case around GL codes and actually how that may work is, if we're selling a product, if we're working within an events industry and we're actually running on a ticketing process, we may sell a ticket for an event, but we don't actually want to recognize the balance of those funds into P&L until actually after the event. So we've had an instance where we create the sale and the invoice and take payment from within the system, and we post that to a particular GL account. We then wait until the date of the event, and we can come back in and post manual journals from Salesforce into Xero to actually move the funds across from one GL account into another. So we can actually manipulate the logic of the whole charts of accounts from within Salesforce. We're doing one at the moment within a finance organization for different funding and moving things around about 40 or 50 different GL codes at different points within the transactions. So that's actually running transactions and manual journal entries from Salesforce. And if we looked at the Xero API documentations, and don't worry about reading on the right hand side, we can see on the left hand side there's multiple, there's a lot of different things we can connect to from Salesforce from outside of Xero and actually push in. So we've got the journals, manual journals, overpayments, payments, purchase orders, quotes, and we can actually connect a lot of different pieces of Salesforce into Xero to meet most business cases, and you just need to define how that's actually going to be, or how that needs to be. So bank transactions being quite an advanced one that we've just looked at is after something's been reconciled, capturing the fact that that has been paid. That can be as simple as invoices in Xero being marked as paid and bringing that information and syncing it with the invoice inside Salesforce, but it can also be actually on a transaction of identifying, well, who has paid us money, looking at the reference numbers that have come through the bank feeds, and then actually in querying data inside Salesforce to find out who has paid for what based on reference numbers. There are options for thinking about starting to set up payments ABA files. So if you want to pay multiple people from data that you're holding within Salesforce, CRM it's a contact relationship management, so it can be suppliers and customers. So if you're actually thinking about suppliers or you think about paying people, we can create CSV files very quickly from the reports of including payment information. There are a few file converters out there that can create ABA files, or you can look at actually doing a custom integration to one of those tools as well. So I think a lot of it's around thinking about a business process, understanding the business process that you want to run. We've had customers in the past who have want to create quotes inside Xero. We really need to start ensuring that we're bringing that information into Salesforce, and actually the relationship. We think through the business process from producing quotes against an opportunity inside Salesforce. We can create an invoice from a quote, or from the opportunity product lines, or from an order line item, or directly from an account using Breadwinner. If you want to pull in multiple information from multiple places in there, then I think you need to look at a different solution to that. But it's definitely about thinking about your sales process and when it is you want to create your invoicing. Options for creating invoicing, depending on the tool that you're using and the method. The more advanced methods, and definitely with the customers, we can actually use the Xero invoice itself. So pull the PDF from Xero into Salesforce. The benefit of that is you can actually have the payment solution, the electronic payments option from Xero, which is nice and easy to set up, pretty much plug and play, and then automatically send that to the customer. If you're going to go with one of the simpler integration methods, OneSAS or Zapier, then you need to think about, okay, how are we going to create an invoice document? So Salesforce out of the box will create a quote document, but it doesn't create the invoices. So there are multiple different document generation tools available. SDocs, Documotion, Conga, just 3 of probably over 20 different document generation tools. SDocs is a great one to start with. You can get 2 free templates from SDocs before you have to start paying to actually use the tool. There are a few limitations around using SDocs. One is you wouldn't have the payment link from within Xero, so you wouldn't be able to include that in the document. You can only pull information from the actual record that you're sending it from, so you'll need to configure Salesforce to pull invoicing details, addresses and contacts into that particular record. Then you can populate an invoice from information held on that record and send it. But there's many different options for how you could generate a simple invoice template from within Salesforce. My preferred one though would always be to use one of the solutions like straight to invoice, Breadwinner, or a custom integration, and actually make sure you're bringing in those files from Xero. I just also feel they're a bit more stable than using Zapier or OneSAS. And they're kind of all the main considerations, I think. So connecting to Xero, thinking about, okay, well, what is the available budget and the actual requirement for how you need that to operate, and then running through this process, a thought process to think, well, which is going to be the right one. We're happy to answer questions now or offline or any other time if you want to contact myself or Natalie, who's also on the line. Scott as well, I know, will be happy to answer questions around possibilities with Xero. So with it depends actually. I mean, the Lightning versus Classic doesn't really matter. It's actually about which edition of Lightning you've got. So there's Lightning, there's Essentials Edition Salesforce where you can't connect anything, where you can connect a couple of things into Essentials Edition. There's Professional Edition, where some of the apps in the App Exchange will work, and I think Breadwinner will work. Or you've got Enterprise level, where you can do anything you like. So it depends on which edition of Salesforce you're using to connect. There is an option if you're using Professional Edition to add API connection, which people do. What that does though is it allows external systems to connect into Salesforce. It doesn't allow you to build custom functionality in Salesforce and start pushing things out. Okay. Most of the 20 or so API integrations we're doing, they're all going to be on Salesforce enterprise level, because then we can do anything we want and bring in products as you need to, manage the product list from the right place, whether that be from within Xero or within Salesforce. Then you've got to think, okay, well, actually, how many invoices are we doing a week, and is it worth it? Because if you're creating 5 invoices a week, it's very different to creating 300 invoices a week.
Yeah,
And one of the big considerations there is, the return on investment of connecting is it worth it? Do we need it? It's actually there. The consideration may be, okay, well, it doesn't take us as much time to create those invoices, but we want our sales team of 20 people to see if those customers owe us any money. So it may be there's the time saving in actually creating, and then there's the benefit of having that data visible to think about. No worries. But there we go. That was half the time that we allowed. I'll let it. Everyone's got half an hour of their day back. If there's no other questions. No? No worries at all. Thank you, everyone. Give us a call if you have anything specific or need any help.
Thank you.
Thank you.